All right, welcome back. So today's video, I want to talk about a follow-up to my last video, and it's all about how a narcissistic girlfriend I had almost completely ruined my life. So I told a lot of the backstory in my last video, but just a quick recap. I'll just kind of go through it. You know, it's kind of the boyfriend girlfriend story, whatever. You know, we love each other so much, everything's great. I'm really naive to any kind of narcissism or anything like that. Anyway, we get together, we're together for a few years, playing house, doing the thing, everything's great. And then she decides to take a trip back to where she's from, visit some friends. And during that trip, she calls me and says, "Hey, I'm not coming back. And can you please pack up my things and take them to my parents' house?" And, that's kind of a shock. I thought everything was cool. I guess it wasn't in her mind. So that's fine. And it's okay to have boyfriends and girlfriends and break up and move on, and that's just part of life. But the part that really was detrimental to me, and this is how I developed a terrible drinking problem from not understanding how to cope with this and move on from these relationships. She kept me on the line by calling and emailing and texting, and just, really, we never had a clean break. So for the next several years, 3 years, she's off wherever she is with, so the whole time we were together, she had another guy on the line, and she was communicating with him. And so she then leaves me and goes to him, and then has me on the line while she's with him. But she realizes, I guess he's kind of a loser. She's not what he was thinking he was going to be. So things fall apart with that relationship. So she finds a new guy who owns this restaurant, and who has a little bit of money, and can fly her to Bali so they can go do yoga and have fun and stuff. And so, he could entertain her a little better. And I told this in the last video, what ends up happening is the initial guy she had on the line that she went back to loses his mind and attacks the new guy that she has. And they have to follow a restraining order, and the police are involved, and it's a whole thing. And so the whole time I'm on the line, and I have no idea what's going on until the guy that lost his mind somehow gets a hold of me. He gets my contact, he contacts me, and he tells me the whole thing. And I didn't know what to say to him. I just was like, "Sorry, man, that sounds bad." And the whole time I'm thinking, because the way she's playing it is, she doesn't really have a boyfriend, but she's just kind of doing her own thing. She's needing some time and space, but the whole time she had multiple dudes going that she was obviously with. And then I guess I was like some backup guy. But what ends up happening is the friction caused by, the guy that lost his mind attacks the other guy. I guess things don't work out between them and whatever. So then she calls me up, and the whole time it's going on, like I said, I'm on the line, and I'm kind of going through this miserable state of purgatory where I can't move on, and she's really got control of me, and I'm such a pushover and a yes man that I just let her do that. And what ends up happening is, so to cope with that, that's when I start drinking. And that's when I get this terrible monkey on my back, which is being an alcoholic. And so to cope with these terrible feelings, I'm just drinking constantly. So, that's affecting my life, and it's not great, but whatever. I'm still making things work. So things don't work out with the new guy. So she calls me up. She's like, "Hey, I'm coming back, and I want to be back with you. I love you. I should have never left. Everything's amazing." I was like, "Oh, this is great." So she comes back, and it's we're trying to give it a go, man. And in my mind, I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. Thank God she's back. We can continue on. Like, our lives are going to be great. So, but what ends up happening, Mo, is so we would like take these little trips. Like, we take these little trips to go up to like a little mountain town, and, you know, we go out and get a hotel room. But what would happen is I would get so drunk that then I would start like this happened. We got kicked out of this place where I got so drunk I started yelling. And I was like, "Where were you? Who are you with? What are you doing?" And because, you know, when somebody like totally fucks you over, you can't just ignore that and pretend it never happened. So, you know, that's like really bad. It keeps happening, but we just ignore it. And so we're like trying to make it work. And she decides, hey, let's have a baby. Let's get pregnant and have a baby. And I'm just like, such a fucking washover, man. And if I knew anything that I know now, if you have a baby with a raging narcissist who all they do is use you and manipulate you, dude, your life, you're cooked, man. You're stuck with that person until the kid is an adult. And so, yeah, she's like, oh, let's have a baby. So she like convinces me, so we start trying to have a baby. And the whole time I'm drinking like constantly all day, you know, as much as I could, because I'm miserable. I obviously my intuition telling me that this is not right, but I'm just burying that down by drinking. So I'm drinking and drinking. We're trying to have this kid. She gets pregnant, and it's like, oh. And I remember, and we weren't married or anything. We're just boyfriend and girlfriend. I remember we go over to her folks' house, and her dad, and he never liked me, man. He was like, I don't know, whatever. He was okay, but he never liked me. He like tolerated me. And so I remember we told him, hey, we're pregnant. We're gonna have a baby. And he was like, fuck. He was like, fuck you, man. Get out of here. And dude, so anyway, so we're moving forward with it. You know, we're looking for midwives, and we're doing the whole thing. And so then one day I remember I had some friends over, and we're chilling at the house, and I was like, oh, you know, what's up with the gal? So I go into the bedroom, and she's in the bathroom, and boom, she's completely gray and passed out, and there's like blood. So what ended up happening was, anyway, so boom, she's gray, passed out, there's blood. I don't know what's going on. She's like laying on the floor. So we take her to the hospital. You know, she's like barely coherent. Yeah, it was like really bad. I was like, oh man, what is going on? So anyway, what ended up happening was so the body rejected the fetus, and what had happened was it just like, because I think it was terrible DNA. I mean, I was like it was like complete alcoholism trying to have a baby, and that's just like, thank God her body rejected it, because it just made this like clump of tissue that joined to her uterus, and then her body miscarried that tissue. It has a name, I forget, but her body miscarries that tissue, and then it results in like a lot of blood loss. So from all that blood loss, she passed out, and she was already like a yoga girl and like skinny and was like malnourished. So yeah, she passes out, and that's what happened. So she's in the hospital for a couple days. You know, they had to, you know, give her, I think they might have given her blood and all that. And so she recovers. By some miracle, we didn't have a baby together, but we're still together. And oh, and then and then she was like super weak. So then I was like nursing her back to health for months. And dude, yeah, it was so rough. And then she decides, hey, I want to move to the city and go to school. And she had like a trust fund, if their family had a trust fund. So she dials up the trust fund, and they're like, yeah, we'll pay for you to go to school. So she leaves and moves to the city and goes to school, and she like wants to stay together, and we just say, hey, let's do this long distance thing. And I had work, you know, a business I'm running, and so we move her up there, and everything's cool. I'm visiting her all the time, and then it's like how are you gonna make that work, you know, with some long distance relationship? It's already on shaky ground. Like, you try to have a kid, it's not gonna happen. And I'm super miserable, drinking the whole time, just not stoked. And what ended up happening was, you know, she's up there and we're apart, and I finally had some space from her freaking narcissistic, you know, clutch over me, and I was able to like have a brief moment of refrain and reflect, and was like, man, I gotta get out of this. You know, I gotta figure out how to not be with this girl anymore. And so, yeah, like it was weird. I met a new girl who I really liked, and I was like, man, this girl is like, you know, there's no drama, there's no baggage, like she's completely new, you know. I wanted to give it a go with her. And the narcissist girl is like up in the city going to school, and just like, you know, there's no relationship there. We're so far away. It was like 6 hours drive, and so it just kind of faded and fizzled, and so I was able to like break that tie, but she was still, you know, had me on the line. She had access to me, and so I started dating this new girl. So the story doesn't end, and you know, fast forward, what ends up happening is I date this new girl, and I've never dealt with any of my problems, from the drinking and the coping, you know, from all that I went through. And it doesn't work with the new girl. And we did like, I don't know, we had like 3 or 4 years together, and we ended up splitting up. And, you know, I'm like in full alcoholic mode, you know, blackout, you know, drinking just wasn't great. My narcissistic mother is like fully raging on me, trying to control, manipulate every part of my life. You know, super depressed. So I split up with this girl, and then like that was the buildup of when I realized, you know, I have to quit drinking. And I tried so many different things to quit drinking. I was like calling those rehab clinic centers, but like I don't have the money to pay for that, you know. It's like thousands of dollars, and half the time it doesn't even work. But anyway, I realized like I got to figure this out on my own, and I thought I should go back to the point where I started drinking. Like, what drove me to drink? Because my previous narcissistic abuse from my mother, you know, I just smoked weed to cope with that. I wasn't a big drinker, and weed was fine. But trying to cope from this other narcissist girlfriend I had that was like, you know, really intense, that's when I turned to alcohol. So I decided I'm going to go to the city where the girl lives and confront her, and I decided I'm going to forgive her. And that's going to be part of my, you know, quitting alcohol. I'm going to find the nexus of where it started, and I'm going to go to her, and I'm going to just like make amends, you know, and just try to have a clean break. Like, say, hey, there's no hard feelings, I forgive you. But in turn, it was really like I was forgiving myself. But anyway, that was my plan. And it had been, you know, 5 or 6 years since I had seen her or talked to her. And she was in a new relationship. You know, that's great. So I make the drive. I get a hold of her. I make the drive. I go up there, and I'm planning to. I was like, we went out to dinner, and you know, and it was like, you know, she's living with this guy, and I was like, oh, is it cool with your dude? I mean, I want to be respectful. Like, I have been that guy before, so I was like, want to be respectful, and you know, and say, hey, like, is it cool that we're hanging out? And she's like, oh yeah, he's cool, whatever. So we have dinner, and like we close down the restaurant, like talking and catching up, and she's like really like, you know, kind of glomming on to me, and I'm just like really wanting to make amends and move on from what I experienced with her. So it's like really important to me to have this conversation with her. So she's like, oh, well, you know, are you going to stay over? So I had a hotel, so I stayed over. She's like, well, come to my work. She worked at like a coffee shop, and like, come say goodbye. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go to the coffee shop in the morning, she's working, and she's like really glommed onto me, man, and, you know, like wanting to hug me, and then so then I'm like, okay, well, you know, I got what I needed from that. You know, I felt we had resolve. You know, we officially broke things off, and it was like just time to move on. And dude, she's like grabbing on me and like kissing me and like saying, oh, I like love you so much, and let's get back together. And I'm thinking like, fuck, man, like, what about the dude you have right now back at home? You're like meeting with your ex-boyfriend, and meanwhile you have some other guy back at home, you know, and like, what the hell is he going through? Anyway, what was interesting about when I went back to see her, when I hadn't seen her in a long time, and I was making amends with her, and I was completely sober, I wasn't smoking weed, I wasn't drinking, nothing. When I saw her, it was so weird. Like, I saw her in a completely different way of like being this, like, she just looked different. She, like, her whole thing, like, I saw who she really was. Like, she was really insecure, and this kind of like insecure, scared person who, you know, I don't think she understood the havoc that she was wreaking in people's lives. But anyway, that whole interaction, I just saw her in a completely different light, and all of the feelings I had towards her, you know, as far as her being amazing and so beautiful and all these things, like, those were completely gone, and I was able to really see clearly because I was totally sober. And then it was just sad, man. She's like hugging me and kissing me and wanting to get back together, and it was this whole just show, man. It was just so sad and so shallow, and, you know, she couldn't, you know, she can't move on from her whatever program, that narcissistic program that she's on of just using people. So you know, and then I just drove off, and then that was it, man. And then what was interesting, some years had passed, another, I don't know, I guess it was maybe a year after that, and I'm not talking to her, whatever, she still has my number. And the day I meet my wife and we like really connect, I met her at a bar during a country show. The day I meet my wife, that fucking girl the next morning hits me up and is like, hey, I'm coming down, let's get together. And it was so weird that she had that psychic connection, that I had met this like really cool chick, and, you know, I was like, this was the one. And I just hit her back and was like, nah, I'm good, have a good one. And that was it. And that is how I, number one, overcame my alcohol addiction, but number two, narrowly avoided a narcissistic girlfriend ruining my life.